clicked. The ball's in motion now.
Oh, just popped up.
Did it? See, I think it's live already, but just it delays. So everyday audios.
Hey,
Number 7 here. Skip
Lucky number
01.
7.
Skip 01 here. That's Taylor Fade over
that's
there.
me.
Over there. And the big man in the middle, Scottie Johnson.
I'm here.
What's going on?
Chilling.
In the building.
That's right.
Scottie Johnson of Excess Power. Was it formerly named Power Master?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
going back to probably like the first part of my story that
Oh, really? Oh,
like
yeah.
Beating him to the
when that
punch.
happened, and yeah.
I thought it was. I remember them. I remember them a lot in USAC a lot.
Yeah, I used to come to shows repping Power Master gear. I mean, that was all I did for like a year. That's when the battery stuff was like first in development.
Oh my God. We're so spoiled now. I say that every show, but we're so spoiled with battery tech now.
So spoiled,
It's
especially in the last couple of years.
no, yeah. Where are we starting?
Let's
Taylor, anything?
let's
last couple of years.
Oh,
let's have Scottie introduce himself and tell us all about himself.
yes, sir.
Scottie, who are you, man?
Who
Introduce
is
yourself to the people.
Scottie
All the way
J?
back to day one. You
You
know,
know what's funny is like if somebody just saw a picture of you, they might not know who you are
No.
because a lot of people don't take the
No.
time to like
I bought-
troll people's pictures or whatever.
I know. I'm surprised that hasn't happened more.
There's no memes of your face, so nobody knows
Right,
who you are.
that's right. If you're not a meme, you're nobody. Actually,
No, I
I've probably
haven't.
been memed several times.
Yeah.
I did have a meme at one time. I forget what it was about, but yeah, it was. Yeah. So I guess starting from like the very, very beginning, what really got me like in as an enthusiast was my dad. He had like a mud truck, like it was like a '78 Ford pickup, and I was just a kid. I mean, I wasn't even as big as the tires he had on that thing, and he just constantly worked on it every day, and it kind of got me interested as a super young kid. Like, okay, cars are kind of cool, and they don't have to be just like you buy them normally, So, my house when I was a kid was like really like exactly catty cornered from the school I went to, so that big truck stayed parked in the driveway, and everybody kind of referred to it as like Bigfoot.
Yeah.
All the kids at school are like, "Hey, you live in a house that has the Bigfoot in the front yard?" So I kind of accepted that. We went to mud bogs all the time. He was constantly working on it. So that kind of gave me like, I guess, the base of what got me interested in cars and stuff like that. And it was a monster. I mean, it was probably pushing about 700 or 800 horsepower, which was a
Dang.
Gee,
lot.
back then. Yeah, back then.
Yeah, shoot.
Ain't nothing now, but back then.
Oh, yeah, right.
They got cars coming to factory with that.
Yeah, factory V6s, man.
Yeah.
So ultimately, when I turned 16, that was going to be what I drove. It was totally not street legal at the time. He had headers straight out the hood and the front end tilted up, literally like Bigfoot did, and it had military axles and everything on it. And it was the real deal for mud racing. I mean, he had probably as many trophies as I accumulated over my years of SPL competition. So
that was probably back before they figured out how to keep axles from breaking, huh?
Well, he figured it out. I mean, he like at that point in time, everybody that he competed with were breaking axles left and right. But he put some military. He could tell you all about it, I'm sure, but something that just never broke. And I ended up driving it around with that on there, which made it really squirrely trying to drive on a 2-lane highway with 6 inches of play in the steering wheel.
Oh, we're on the street with Bigfoot now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a daily driver.
Oh my God!
Probably got
So
good.
my dad-
Probably
I thought
got
it was
good
just
gas
like a
mileage.
mud bogging truck, like a competition truck or something.
It was. It totally was. It was the equivalent of almost what an extreme vehicle would be in SP. So it was totally not drivable at all. But it kind of set, when I was younger. After he kind of retired from that, and when it came time for me to learn how to drive, it's like, okay, well, we're going to take this 460 out and put you know, a 351 in there that had way less power. It was like a junkyard motor from an LTD or something. And we kind of made it our project when I turned 16. We like, built the motor together and put it in, and it was a fun deal, but it took us a year, so I didn't actually get to drive it until I was 17. So it taught me.
Those are the best projects, though, man.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
start one.
Sun projects. Shoot.
It was so much
Where
fun.
are we talking? Like where are you from? Where was this? Are you still in there in the state?
That was back home in Kentucky. So I was born and raised in Morgantown, a super tiny town, kind of in between Bowling Green and Owensboro, Kentucky. Uh, People would probably know better. It's kind of right in the middle of Louisville and Nashville. It's right about where I'm from. So there was a lot of stuff like that. I mean, I lived in the middle of the woods, and people got out and did redneck stuff. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, but that's kind of what my dad did. He put all of his money into that, and I got to drive it in high school, and it kind of was fun for a little while. It got me in a lot of trouble, you know, because I couldn't keep it, you know, as a regular car. I would drive over bank school, get in trouble.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I did all the stuff you're not supposed to do with it, but it was fun, and it was kind of I think is what got me hooked into like the car and truck scene sort of thing. But so, you know, fast forward from there, I kind of got tired of driving that thing that got 7 miles to a gallon. So I got into I went polar opposite. I went into a Geo, like a little bitty yellow Geo. I can't even imagine.
A Geo what? Metro?
Yeah, like
Yes.
sport.
That little
It was just-
hatchback. They made a
So I
sport
got-
version.
Yeah, yeah.
I love
It was
y'all.
probably 1.1 liters or something. I mean, it was ridiculous.
That was a
but-
3-liter. I had one too. It was awesome.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah.
man. I got it because it was supposed to get like 50 miles to the gallon, and it didn't get anywhere near that. But anyway, that didn't last long, and I went into an S10 Blazer, and I guess I learned a lot about myself with that Blazer because it's when I first started doing stuff to my own car. Like that truck, really, I was too young. I didn't have any money. I was working at my brother's restaurant, so I just didn't make enough to be able to really do anything with it. So
that is
this
the worst. That is the worst scenario ever. You don't make
I
enough to
know.
do what you want. I'm there right now. I'm just there right now. I'm just be honest.
Dude,
Go ahead.
there's so many people that will watch this will be like, dude, I feel you.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
exactly where you're, because I've been there.
You
You know,
you got the plan. You have the plan and the steps, but you
Yeah.
just there's one
you
little
gotta
thing.
save up. I mean, you write your mod path down. Like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
starting with this, and it costs this much. It's gonna take me this many weeks to save for this and this and this and this and this, all the way down, man.
I did all
think
that.
now the problem is it's like, you know, I'm not rich or anything, but like I have a
T-fade money.
paradox of choice. I have too many choices. You know what I mean? So like I got too many options. Like sometimes I wish I was broke so I could only do like one little thing at a time. Like I'd chop all my options down.
There's that meme, like there's that meme that's like I already bought everything I want up to a certain point, but over that like 10,000 threshold, I don't have that money, you know. But everything under it, I already bought everything I can afford.
that's
But
Yeah, I can tell you from experience, you can put way more money than necessary in a car, and I started doing that way back. This is where I learned I had a problem. I had that S10 Blazer, it ran perfectly fine, had a V6 in it. It was weak, super weak, but my older brother kind of introduced me to the audio stuff. He was an Iasca SQ competitor way back in the day of like Perry and Perry, Georgia, and all those actually paid out a lot of money back in the day. Full on Rockford Fosgate guy. I mean, there was really nothing. It was a Mitsubishi Eclipse. I fell in love with that car. He let me drive it once, and I was like, oh, I just love this thing. I want one like it. But at some point, he decided he wanted to kind of piddle around in the cabinet business. Bless you.
In the what?
thank you.
The kitchen cabinet business. He just decided one day that he wanted to be a cabinet maker, and just doing it by himself. He's like, hey, you want to come do this? Help me out? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I went and did that for a little while, and I was like, really my only main interest in doing this is to learn how to build speaker boxes. He already knew how to,
Yeah.
but that was my thing. I had access to tools that you could make stuff with, and I had that Blazer. I ripped the whole interior out. It was it was like an '85 Blazer. And at this point, I think I'd already put like some 15 by 10s on it or something, stick out way wide, look like roller skates. It was like a millimeter off the ground and it was scraping the ground. Anyway, I put, this is how much I didn't know. I put 8 12s and 4 10s in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know you're better off to have all of the same size driver for SPL.
the 12s are for the lows, the 10s are for the high bass.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, well, that was my mindset before I really knew
Yeah.
what I was doing. So, man, I had punch 150s in that thing and a mix matched of different Rockford subs for the old punch series or whatever. So I played around with that a little while, and I kind of quickly became known as like the loudest in town. Like nobody. Some dude had a little Ford Escort, and he had one of those old mics. I'm talking about like before audio control, before Linear X. It was like something you could tote around with you in the car, and he would just measure people's car and always say, "Look, I'm still the loudest." But he pulled me over one day, like, "Hey, I hear you got the loudest system in town now. Let's hear it." And he had his little mic thing in his hand. He was still sitting in his car, supposed to obviously get out and get in my car. And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're the loudest." He didn't even get out of his car. It was he had like 15. I think they were actually like Eminence drivers, old, like not even really made for cars or whatever. So that kind of got me addicted. And then I did something really stupid. I put a 350 in that Blazer, which put me right back where I was before. Was spending tons of money on gas. I'm trying to drive back and forth to college in this thing, and that was a dumb idea. So I got an Accord. I saved up my money. I sold some stereo equipment. I got a 91 Accord, and I didn't really learn my lesson from any of that previous experience. So I ended up taking the back seat out of that and put 12 12s in it.
Yes.
Damn, 12 12s and an Accord.
Yeah, the back seat of a 91 Accord.
Holy shit.
I had 12 Soundstream mules in sealed enclosure that I built into the car. And I was using like Soundstream Rubicon 1002 amplifiers, if you remember those. Those are super old school. It was loud. It was stupid loud. It was loud enough that people started telling me, "You need to go enter this thing in a competition." And I'm like, "What? I don't even know what that is. How does that even work?" So somebody gave me like a flyer at like the local stereo shop that I used to hang out at in Bowling Green. It was like, "Hey, they're having this finals thing." And it turns out it was 98 World Finals in Nashville, like the first year they had DB drag. So I thought I could just drive my car up in there and compete it. I didn't know you.
I ain't got no points.
All stuff. So I went there and got rejected at the door, but I watched it. I literally walked in and saw some of the people that everybody knows, like Steve Cook was competing in there, and Jay Lovelace and Art Turgeon, all those old school guys were.
Yeah, we talked about Cook on the last one.
Yeah,
guys everywhere.
Yeah. Steve's a good friend of mine. I just talked to him yesterday. But yeah, so I was totally addicted, and so the very next year was the first year that Mecca came about, and I went to the first ever Mecca show, and the only other person there that had a viable system that was loud or anything was Dominic Araghi. Like he was at the first ever Mecca show, so he won his class. I won my class. We didn't really talk much there, I don't think, but I probably did 20 shows that year. Like I just followed Mecca everywhere they went. I mean,
That's a lot of shows.
This was like 99 or
this was 99, and then I think in 2000 I did somewhere around 38 shows.
Do you remember what you were doing? Like on the meter? When did the sensor come out? Like 03?
Yeah, that was.
So this was all audio control.
This was Linear X. Mecca used Linear X back in the day. So that first show I went to, I did like a 151 with 12 12s on a Linear X, and that thing was loud. I mean, to sit in, even compared to some of the stuff you hear today, it was loud, but it was like that was the second loudest number of the show. I'm pretty sure Dominic was the only other person that put up a bigger
number. Were they
number.
doing headrest at that time?
No, it was Outlaw. It was like you could put the mic wherever you wanted, but I think that first year you had to keep the doors closed or something like that.
Yeah, Steve kind of helped get. He kind of founded USAC with everybody, right? So he just kind of broke off, did his own thing.
That's right. So that next year was the first year that I ever did a USAC show too, and they had the audio control, and I popped off some crazy number. I was like, "Oh man, I'm loud!" You know? And it was
find that out when they open a door.
Yeah, and it was outlaw too. But that either that next year or the following year, must have been that year, 2000. We were at some random show in Nashville, and Dominic came over to me and he's like, "Man, this thing, I've been watching it since you started competing. It is so loud. People, I would demo it. You know, I competed in SPL, but it was a demo car. I mean, I had 6 little bitty 925 batteries in there. They were Stingers at the time, and I had nothing for power. I mean, I had like, well, at that time I had 2,500 watts total power on 1212s. It was just nothing for power.
And this was still the Accord.
That was the Accord.
You drove that around daily too, or?
Daily drive, yeah. I drove it around campus. I mean, I would beat
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and it was one of those that this was after. So I had like the Class A Chrome amps that Soundstream made, and then I swapped to the 1002s. And when I did that, I put 6 of them in there. So I had real power. Now I put a Power Master alternator on there. That's where the whole Power Master thing started. Is I called them up and they hooked me up with a discount on an alternator for audio use. And man, I put those 6 amps in there and it got so much louder. I was metering on the Linear X at that time like 157s or so. I had made a huge jump. And at this time, I'm pretty sure it was still door closed, but you could put the mic wherever you wanted to. And I'm at some random show in Nashville and Dominic is there. And he comes over to me and he's like, "Hey, I've noticed this thing has just been getting louder and louder. What have you been doing?" And I told him about it, showed it. He shows up at this point. He's already built like a Honda of some sort with a bunch of 5 1/4s in it, kind of like he did that Cadillac build. And he's like, "Man, I bet this thing would be so much louder if you like level matched your gains and all this stuff." And I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." I just put it in there. When he said level matched, I said, "Yeah, all the gains are pointed in the same direction."
Yeah.
They're all at half.
All knobs to the right.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Hey, let me, if you don't mind, let's do this." So he taught me right there how to do level matching, like how to choose a tone and match the gains of. So I'd already ran through that day, and I didn't change anything else other than just doing that. And I ran through and gained like a dB. I did a mid 158 or something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. Huge difference. So I learned. I was in school, college at that time, and I was taking some, electrical engineering courses and things like that to try to learn a little bit more. And it was totally driven by my hobby. That's how I kind of chose my career path. Was I like doing this SPL stuff. I'm gonna focus on it in school and get better. So I kind of got addicted then to doing some of that stuff, and so I ended up that year, 2000, I entered enough DB drag classes to qualify for finals. And this was back in the day where qualifying was hard. Like you could, even if you had enough points, you still had to have an invitation because there were so many people they would only have room for just.
You used to have like a top 15 score to get an invite, right, or something like that.
You had to be top 15 or 20 or something like that, but you also had to have the points. And almost every single class, there were tons of people who didn't get to come who were qualified, but you had to have a top score and you had to have enough points. So I made it. I was in the Super Street 9 Plus class, and this is kind of a newbie thing that is just a funny story, kind of showing how much I didn't know at the time, but I wanted to win. So I looked at some of the guys that were winning. Tommy McKinney was up there, like, he was registered like second or third in the rankings or whatever. So I thought to myself, I'm going to go in here and double my power. So I'm using single 4-ohm subs or dual 4-ohm subs, something. I'm not really sure what the impedance configuration was, but I bought twice as many amps and ended up running double the ohm load and having the exact same power and not after spending all that money. Like I literally put every penny from so I would get to pay for college. I would get financial assistance, and I would try to get as much financial assistance as I could, so I could afford to buy more stereo equipment to put
Oh
in.
no.
So I racked up tons and tons and tons of debt, but it didn't matter to me at the time. I was putting money on credit cards, and I was working making pennies, like $7 or $8 an hour in a cabinet shop, and probably really only working 20 or 30 hours a week because I spent so much time building stuff.
Going to shows.
Audio is life.
Going to shows, not doing good in class, being nearly a college dropout.
Living the life was
Yes,
what
sir.
you mean.
Yes,
It
sir.
was fun.
Life.
I wouldn't trade those years for anything. I had so much fun with that car, and I guess after I didn't even qualify finals that year. I didn't even I didn't get a chance to go through eliminations, so I didn't even make top 8. I think I was like 13th or 14th or something like that. Maybe I beat one person, but the next year I was like, okay, it's time to get serious. So I got a van, which is what everybody does when they get serious, and I just started my research from there. I got I actually one of the reps from JL was there that year when I got my ass handed to me at finals, and he said, "Are you going to USAC finals next month?" And I said, "Yeah, for sure, I'm going." I had enough points to qualify there too, and he's like, let us send you some subs." So that was my first sponsorship. I got a full sponsorship with for 6 JLW 6s, 15s.
Dang,
Yes.
JL does sponsorships?
Yes, sir.
They really didn't at the time. I mean, maybe Nate Munson at the time was the only person that was getting free.
He was
JL.
not running JL all the way back then. Stop it.
He was at one point in time. He'll tell you at one point in time.
I hate
He
that
did.
guy. I hate that guy.
Wait, who?
Nathan Munson.
Oh, Munson was out there running jail still?
Still crushing dreams
Yeah.
with people with JL to date.
That's funny.
That's right. But I went to Kansas City and ran the Honda. I did a whole new sticker look on it. I mean, I went all out in that month period. I worked every single day. Probably slept 2 hours a night or something. And I don't even know what I did there. I don't think anything serious.
So you changed it to the 615s?
I changed the 615s in the Accord.
And
Yeah.
it's
What was it,
still
like
sealed?
WOs or something?
Yeah.
I think they were like
Ones?
W3s. I want to say they were
W3s?
W3s or something like that.
You still were sealed? You still went sealed with the box? Or
Steel? No, it was wood. I made a bunch
no,
of
sealed.
Sealed. No. I that was my first go at a vintage enclosure. It was hideous. I have like maybe one picture of it somewhere.
Hey, speaking of pictures, this is what we need you to do. We need you to go dig into the archives and like make a thread tonight or tomorrow in the morning or whatever, and link to this podcast, and it'd be like, here's the
progression
order of the shit
the
I was
progression.
talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that people have reference.
Man, I got a
Look
whole
at your
bunch
thread
of
while they're listening to the podcast.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of stuff like that. A bunch of stuff that I kept like secret photos, and now I don't even care. I'll probably send them to a bunch of people who just occasionally somebody asks me, "Hey man, I know you used to know stuff about SPL. Help me out," and I'll send them some old pictures and stuff I did way back in the day, which are still relevant today for the most part. But so I got that van, and I told JL I need some more 15s, so I did 915s in it, and I qualified that year. I got put out in eliminations at drag finals, but this was when DB Drag was using the audio control style mic, and I think the numbers there, it's all on my stats page, but I think they were like, man, I want to say I was just barely into the 60s on that old mic or something. And of course, I just kept building and building. I gained more sponsorships. I got a Dyer Audio, finally got me into a decent subwoofer, the Brahma type subwoofer. Made a huge difference. But before I tried that, I put the 915s in I didn't know what I was doing, but I just put them in a bunch of little bitty boxes and shoved them all the way to the back of my enclosure. And it was essentially what a lot of people are using today, but I was doing big numbers at a relatively high frequency with those JLs, with those Brahmas using a 3-inch coil and the XBL2 type motor structure. They just didn't like that at all. So I ended up taking them out and doing front wall, like side port.
You
And that's
talking
when
about? Were you in a band pass at the time?
I didn't know it. Yeah, I was. Literally, if I had, like, I did run the Brahmas like that for a little while, and if I, I built all of my builds off of like field and like trying to look at it from like a physics standpoint, but not really taking too much into account as far as like measuring airspace and things like that. I tried to build off of field more than anything. But at one point, I remember thinking, I need to close part of this front off because this whole huge open front is just way too big. So I took a couple boards and put them up in there and tried different frequencies, and I just got bored with it. I threw it away. But if I had kept going and just put a big thick baffle right there in the front, there's no telling what that build would have done. And I was still on no power at that time, and I was running. I had 9,000 watts total on subs, and I'll never forget the first time I wired it up. I didn't have any sort of sponsorship with the Stinger batteries I was using at the time, but I bought, those little 925 size ones, like the 925 size, and I put one for each amp. So I had 9 amps and 9 batteries in there.
I love those little batteries.
Mm-hmm.
I wired it all up, and the very first time I did a burp, I just bought myself a meter. I bought the original Term Lab, the dual mic version. And the very first burp I did, I was standing at the back of the van and I burped it and I saw something move. I'm like, what was that? And I couldn't really catch it again. So I did it all over again, charged my batteries a little bit more, and something moved again. I was like, I don't know what that is. And I did it again and specifically just watched and not looking at the meter. And what it was the 0 gauge cable, the only 0 gauge cable that I had all 9 amplifiers grounded to, was passing so much current it was moving like a snake.
Oh my god!
That's all I learned.
Have you ever seen that video of like the Brazilian guys with like 9 trillion watts and like all their wires just go?
Yeah, they just
like when it comes through.
Yeah,
crazy.
So that's essentially what was happening there. But so I learned just on my own, playing around with a lot of that stuff. And I eventually ended up putting 18 amplifiers, 18 1,000 watt amps in there. And
what amps?
Still the same Rubicon 1002s at that point. And I'm funding, except for the sub sponsorships that I had at the time, I was funding all this from my financial assistance from college and what little money. So by this time I had already also kind of started building speaker enclosures for people. Like people in town are like, man, you got such loud stuff. Why don't you build me a box and do my install? So I was spending I would work for 4 or 5 hours a day at my cabinet job, and then I would spend the rest of the night trying to side hustle to make cash to buy more amps and stuff. So eventually, I guess MTX came through and they sponsored me for the whole pallet of amplifiers. It was one of the happiest days of my life. The whole pallet shows up 15 what are those
15,001 or something. Yeah.
They're 1501Ds is what they were. So I mean, here I am, brand new amps out of the box. The first thing I do is lay them all out on the table and open them all up and cut the protection out. Like, you're telling how many thousands of dollars worth of amps I had to cut the protection out so that they would go down to the impedance I needed to run them at. And this was during the time where Thunder Force had formed, and I don't know what year we're talking about now. I guess it's probably 03 by now. 02 probably the last year of the regular mic before they switched to the sensor. I got to finals, and I had a winning score in the bag. I got to the final round of eliminations and went one clip too much and broke 3 subs and got second place.
Ouch.
Which was pretty much the story of my life for the next few years. I kept doing stuff like that over and over because I just wanted to show what it would do. And I'm using half the power of everybody else and half the quality of equipment. And just, still I would set records, like world records, but I never could get that DB drag national championship. And, the next year, 03, I guess it was, at spring break is when they swapped to the sensor. And I had made a bunch of changes that year. MTX came to support us at spring break, and I popped off a pretty good score there, but that was when Bobby and Alan Riley started first doing monster numbers, so they were way, way, way ahead of everybody else. And I can't remember what the scores were. I think maybe low 160 for everybody at that time. That was loud. I remember specifically at that show, it was a struggle for anybody to break. And some of the guys in extreme class doing well over a 70 didn't even break a 70 for a big portion of that year that the sensor first came out. But I just kept working at it and got better and better equipment. I got on board with RE. I got.
Were you talking about the same van this whole time?
This is the white van or that black van?
Yeah, so this is another thing that a lot of people don't realize. There were 3 vans, actually. The first one, all these vans I essentially got for free, by the way. They were junkyard vans, and I had people along the way that traded me stuff for them. But the original white van is the one that I had the Brahmas and the 915s in, and I eventually sold that. So I guess 04 Spring Break Nationals, I had it sold in advance before I even came, so I had built another van already. So I built the new van for Super Street 5 Plus, 9 Plus it was still at the time. And then I changed the baffle on the original white van, and I built it for 3 to 4, and we took it to Spring Break and set a world record with it, and won Spring Break. And at the end of the show, I took all the equipment out, and Sean Fleming actually is who bought it from me. So he took it home with him that day, and eventually it changed hands after he had it to several other people, and then it eventually turned into what people know today as the DB Drive van that Alex Mendoza.
Oh, that thing is beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. So it didn't, when he got it, he painted it. The enclosure essentially stayed the same, and it was, I think he got really close, if not actually breaking a 70 with it on the meter, on the sensor, and DB drag on the dash legal. But he was using much better subs than I had, and probably 3 or 4 times the power. So I never did really have that kind of power. But that next van that I built, I ran it for that year, and we had RE subs. I had Optima sponsorship at the time. Kind of what got me really into battery technology and development was the fact that I couldn't get a 16-volt battery. TurboStart was the only people that made a 16-volt battery at the time, and I couldn't get a sponsorship. Some people ruined the opportunity for that along the way. And, so I could, I either had to use my financial assistance or get a sponsorship. I didn't have any money.
Who ruined? What kind of battery did you say?
Turbo Smart.
Oh, Turbo Smart.
TurboStart.
TurboStart. So who ruined that for you? Call them out.
Just a bunch of competitors who were getting sponsorships and not fulfilling their sponsorships. So
I thought you meant they cock blocked you specifically.
No, TurboStart just kind of said, okay, we're not doing this anymore. It's a waste of money, which is ultimately what happened to a lot of people. Sponsorship.
Yeah.
But I built that van, and we ended up, for the most part, it had 12/12s in it. It's pretty high numbers. We were getting up. So with that van, I was the first to break into the 166 in Super Street, and eventually the first to break into the 167s. And but there was always, the Rileys using the Rockford equipment. I never could quite catch them until I think it was maybe 05 finals, the last year it was in Nashville, one of the biggest shows there were there. So the one video that seems to still float around today of my competition days
the hand video.
Yeah, it was me going against them. Yeah, the guy trying to hold it that way.
Love that video. Y'all go Google that right now. YouTube, Scottie Johnson van.
Yeah, so we tied that round at 167.4, I think, and in qualifying we tied at 167.1. I think that round we tied at 167.5, and then we had to do eliminations, and all my stuff blew up, and they won easily. But I rebuilt it for USAC finals and went back and broke a 168. I was the first person to break 168 in Super Street on the sensor, and set a world record that I don't think it was touched the whole rest of that year. So that would have been '06. So I had a clean run at finals. There shouldn't have been anybody that was anywhere near me for '06 finals, but I ended up blowing my load in the final round against Bob Perillo. I got second place again. So,
Them clicks.
Always a bridesmaid,
yes,
never a bride.
well, and then the following year after that is when Steve Cook came back to SPL. He was in my class, so he beat me handily at World Finals that very last year that I competed. But let's see, that the last certified score I set, I think, was the world record that I set at 169.5, and that was so. I had already changed vans again at this point, so that middle van that I had, the black one that was in that video, ultimately ended up selling that to Carlos Rodriguez down in Florida, and it changed hands a few times and ended up in Andrew McCain's hands, which I think is where it still is today with the same criminal deal. He was doing major numbers with it too in the 170 range.
Yeah.
And then the reason I
1.5 or so in Radix.
Yeah. So the reason I ended up with those last two vans is in 2006, DB Drag announced that they were going to give cars away for the deathmatch champion at the end of the year. So
what?
Yeah, so I decided this is for real. I got to step my game up. So basically what I did is all year long I changed my build not to be focused on how loud it could be, like top SPL, but how long it could last. So I did tons of like studying. Like I figured out, okay, my coils can take at this frequency and at this much sound pressure, they can take this much power for this long before they break. I spent the whole year doing that because I wanted to make sure that I won deathmatch. And then I qualified one van in my class, Super Street 5 Plus at that time, under my name. And then I had my team van that everybody pulled together and helped work on under another class in 3 to 4. And I built it so that my ultimate goal was that in each division, you would have the four loudest competitors in each division. So 4 from Street, 4 from Street Max, 4 from Super Street, and 4 from Extreme would all get a chance. Whoever the loudest 4 were across all classes in that division would get a chance for the death match, the 4 positions in death match. So in my mind, I was like, if I can get 2 of those positions in the death match, then I'll have twice the chance of winning the death match.
Yeah.
And my strategy was going to be, if I was able to get to that point, my strategy was going to be to know where this van can go because I've studied it all year. I know where the maximum is. I know where the safe level is. I want to come out with this van at that safe level, and I want to take my other van and start off 4 dB higher than that and drive the other competitors to blow up their shit. The plan worked. Like, it worked out. So,
what?
Yeah, so I got to finals and I qualified. So I got second place in both of the classes. Gorman Cassidy beat me in Super Street 3 to 4, and Bob Perillo beat me in Super Street 5 Plus. But still, both of my vans were top 4 qualified for overall PL to be able to be in the death match. So we executed it just like we wanted. Bob Perillo came out doing like a 165 plus or something, and he blew up in a minute or less, or a minute and a half or something like that. And then Gorman was pushing really hard, and he made it really. I was starting to sweat bullets. He made it like close to 4 minutes in, I think. There's a video
How long
of that.
was this thing, or was it just go till you blow?
5 minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's 5 minutes average. So they average.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So finally, Gorman's, he lost a sub, I think maybe from, I don't know, low voltage or something getting too hot or whatever, but it ended up that both of mine stayed playing the whole entire time. So at the first of the year, the award was supposed to be something cool, like Nissan 370s or 350Zs or something like that, but I don't know what happened to the budget before it got to the end of the year. But when we showed up at finals, the giveaway cars were Chevy Aveos. So
hey, what are you gonna do?
But still, it's like, it's way better than a $5 plastic trophy.
Yeah.
Super stoked to win it. So
Was that
never
like the OG deathmatch? Was that the first one, or was this already a thing?
well, they used to do extreme death matches every year at finals, and people used to win like motorcycles. Like Jay Lovelace won a motorcycle. A lot of guys that competed in extreme won like some big prizes way back in the day. But this was the last year that, as far as DD drag racing, they actually did some pretty big prizes. But
Tommy K keeps correcting your years in the comments.
yeah, he probably remembers a lot better than I do.
Obviously, I'm terrible with years, but yeah, obviously he knows them all.
Yeah, I do remember it. That was Cleveland. It probably was '05, I'm guessing. But anyway, I never actually drove the Aveo. That was '05 because that year is when. So part of what I did, that one of my secrets back in the day when I was competing, is I couldn't get a 16-volt battery, and this relates to the whole overall story. So
somebody mentioned that in the comments.
Yeah, I thought he was maybe trying to out you.
What I did back in the day, I got the sponsorship from Optima. They would send me like, 80 or 100 batteries at a time for one of these builds or whatever, and they were the big Group 31 size.
Did you say 80 or 100 at a time?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
He just glowed like it's nothing.
Whole pallet, yeah. And I promoted hardcore for them back then too. But I couldn't. Back then, you couldn't compete on 12 volts. Everybody was using 16-volt amplifiers, and I would have really competing against everybody else. So what I did is I went out, and Dominic, actually from Nashville, Raggy, said, "Hey, I got this whole cabinet full of these old." They were called all-cad cells. They were like NiCad, big 2-volt cells used for like UPS backup or something. He's like, "I'm not using them. You can have them and just put them in series with your batteries and see what happens." So I did it, and it worked. Gained like 2.6 dB just by adding 2 volts to what I had already. And so I ran that for like a year, and it was, I'll have to show you guys pictures of it. It was the god-awfulest mess of wires, but it was really well laid out and organized, and it worked. But at some point I realized the mismatch of amp hour capacity and all the wires running everywhere wasn't very efficient. So I got really, really brave one day, and I created this wooden jig that I could put a live Optima battery on and turn upside down and cut it with my table saw in half so that I could separate 4 cells from the other 2 cells. So I took all the 4 cells and series paralleled those together, and then I took all the 2 cells and combined them all together until I got to 16 volts. So I essentially reconfigured 100 Group 31 Optima batteries into 75 8 volts and 25 combined. Like I had these little homemade studs that I put on them and wired it all up, and I sealed them back up, and that worked really well. I had better power than I'd ever had before, probably better power than anybody I was competing against had too. That was a lot of capacity and a lot of instantaneous power. But the problem that I didn't realize at the time is once you cut open a sealed battery that's meant to stay sealed, it doesn't really last very long after that. So maybe about 4 months is all I got out of those batteries I cut up.
Worth it.
So I had to get a new batch.
Send me another 80.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
It went out.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. So what actually ended up happening is at some point towards the end of '05, I was reporting back to all my sponsors how well I had done. PowerMaster happened to be one of the people that I was reporting back to because they were my alternator sponsor. They were giving me alternators at that point in time. This was before McMahon existed. This was before Aragi and all these guys that are out there now existed. But
About Ohio Gen.
they were around. Those guys used to come to shows even way back when I first started. But, I didn't know those guys. I knew the reason I had a connection with PowerMaster is the stereo shop that I used to hang out at. One of the guys that installed there went there to PowerMaster to become an engineer and worked in doing all the engineering development stuff, and eventually turned to be one of my best friends. He was in my wedding. He's a super good buddy of mine, still is. And he comes to shows every now and then. But anyway, I was reporting back, and at that time, TurboStart had gone out of business. The guys making 16-volt batteries for drag race cars that some people were using in audio for 16-volt setups. And he was like, "Hey, these TurboStart guys, they went out of business, and there's kind of a hole in the market now, and everybody keeps coming to us since we make 16-volt alternators, and they're trying to get us to make a battery, and nobody here knows how to make a battery. So we heard how you're like cutting these batteries apart, making stuff from nothing. So do you possess the knowledge, and would you be interested in helping us do the development of a 16-volt battery?" And that was the end of my cabinet career. I said, "Hell yes, I'm out of here." Yeah, I moved to Knoxville initially to start working as, I guess, for a trial basis. It was right at the very first of 2006, just to kind of, I guess they kind of wanted to fill me out to see what I knew and what I was capable of. So they put me on the phone lines answering alternator and starter questions, and I failed miserably at that. Like, I realized real quick what I don't know. So, but I had the engineering mindset. I had my degree at that point. I didn't even use my degree from Western. I just spent too much time competing that I never actually tried to get a real job. So that's kind of where the career at PowerMaster started. When we started with the 16-volt battery development, we released the first battery, which is what everybody knows today as the XP1000 16-volt battery. Still a great product, good seller for us. But that, going back to the SPL part, that Chevy Aveo that I won, I never actually drove it. I went to the dealership and they handed me the keys, and I said, "I don't want that thing. I want to trade it in on something else." So I got a Chevy Malibu Max and paid the difference in that. So that first year of working there, we started developing a 12-volt line too that would ultimately become the D series that we have today. And one of the first ones we produced was that little 925 size. So I dropped it in my Malibu with a little mount that we designed for it. That was a 2006, and I sold that car when I bought my Cadillac a year and a half ago, 2 years ago or something like that. And it still had that same 925 in it from 2007. So I got 10 years out of that battery. Who knows, for all I know, it still may be rolling around out there. Whoever bought it might still have it. But yeah, it was a weird connection there. But so yeah, we started with just that 16-volt battery and the charger for it, and just kept plugging away. We started with basically looking at a lot of the models that were popular at the time were like the Stinger sized, all the small Stinger sized batteries. We started developing all those, and really our main focus was in the race market. But I kept going to the owners at the time and saying, there's this big market. This car audio stuff is bigger than you think. This is when Kinetic started really doing well at the time, and there's stuff was starting to pop up everywhere. And I said we could have a business all on its own in the audio side, and we started pushing it pretty hard. And I got 16-volt batteries in all of my buddies' SPL competition cars. Like I got them all like sponsorship pricing, deep discount pricing, and a lot of their scores started going up because the batteries that they had prior to that just weren't capable of putting up big numbers. Holding a high voltage under a load, the voltage would fall real far, which obviously your score suffers. But yeah, we rolled that into the whole 12-volt line, and we did that for, I guess, 12-volt stuff started in 07. We started our first lithium development in 07. We actually designed a battery that won us the Best New Product Award at SEMA in 08, I believe. And this little battery weighed about 4 pounds, and it was a bunch of 18650 cells all welded together. But what was unique about it is we actually applied for a patent. I don't know if the patent was ever actually granted. That was before I had anything to do with ownership of the company. But that battery actually had a regulator built in, so that internally the pack was wired to 22 volts. Is the way that the cells were configured was at 22 volts, but we built a regulator into it with a digital display, so you could program the battery to what voltage you wanted to use it for.
What?
So,
That's insane.
yeah, it was pretty wicked for the time. So we took that to SEMA. The hype for it was huge. I mean, we could have walked away with hundreds or even thousands of orders. We weren't really ready for production yet, though, so we put some more money in development of that, and we ended up getting it to market that following year, and it turned out not to be such a great invention after all, for the stupidest reason ever. And the reason is because it was for the racing market. You know, audio guys could have used it, would have loved it, but back then the mentality is not like it is today. People didn't have enough foresight to see that we could be using this much lighter product to do a much better job than what we were using. So we pushed a little to sell it back then, but it never really, lithium and audio never really took off until Juicebox started pushing it super hard. So anyway, the reason that battery flopped and turned out not to work is because the race guys, when they put it in their car to use it and make passes for drag racing, they log their data, and pretty much all of their data logging is voltage based. So when they look at the data, they would see certain triggers. Like, for example, when the nitrous solenoids fire, you would see voltage checks. The regulator in our battery reacted so quickly that their data log was nothing but a straight line of straight voltage. Like if they programmed it to 16.8 volts, that's all that you would see is 16.8 volts, and they lost that visibility in their data.
Oh, that's
so they couldn't see when it kicked in.
Reason ever.
I know. So all that technology, all that development was
what the shit
out the window. So people still bought them for a little while, but eventually we discontinued it and just went to a more standard, more like what you see today, just more of a dumb, just plain balancing, and that's it. But so, you know, we as far as, you know, I guess at one point, the first year we did business as PowerMaster that whole first year in batteries. So batteries, chargers were labeled as PowerMaster branded product. It was part number 1000, I think. Towards the end of that first year, somebody sent us a letter saying, hey, you can't use PowerMaster for batteries because we have trademarked that. So we were forced to change the name. So I was tasked to try to come up with a new name, and that's where the Excess Power brand name came from, was out of necessity. We had to. So at that point, we did that and further started developing the 12-volt line, and kind of treated it from that point on as kind of a separate company. And maybe a couple years down the road, a few years, I was working my way up in the company where I wasn't just doing like engineering R&D type stuff anymore. I guess I spent probably half of my year in 2007 and another half of it in 2008 doing stupid stuff like throwing lithium cells into a burning barrel of wood to see what would happen.
Just to see.
Doing all those tests that people probably watch all the time on YouTube now, like the safety tests that companies do. I was doing all that and without any clue. Like the very first test I did with lithium was I took a bunch of these little 18650s, and I had no tools available to me in the engineering department. I had a whole machine shop right outside my door, but I didn't know how to use any of that stuff. C machines and stuff, I had no clue. So to be able to test it, I just took those 18650 cells and used packing tape and taped them end to end. And then I took another run of them and taped those. And I taped them together and soldered two little 8-gauge wires on them and took it outside to one of the guys on the Civic and cranked it right up. I was like, okay, this will work.
That's awesome.
That was the start of our R&D for
science.
So it was like a stick.
It was like the sticks you were waving around.
Like the Nimrod.
Yeah, exactly.
Ninja sword. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Science.
Start of that.
For real. Science the shit out of these batteries.
Chemistry.
But,
I want that job. Do you still have that position available for people just to tear shit up in the back and throw stuff into fires and tape things up and whatnot?
Yeah, there's been a need for that position to be filled. I've talked to a few guys about having that.
I
I do
feel
know.
I feel highly qualified for that position.
You are. We've talked about it. We've
Putting
talked
that out
about
there.
it. Somebody don't want to move to Tennessee though. That's the problem.
Talk it over with Mama.
Yeah. So I do have a really good product manager right now. We're making some really good headway. So when we get to part two of this thing, I'm super excited to talk about a lot of that stuff that we're working on. But back to the original story, so as we're working and building, we're starting to grow sales in the 12-volt side, and we're doing okay in the racing side. The owner at the time decided he was ready to retire, so we worked through the process of trying to sell off the PowerMaster brand to the West Chicago counterpart. And I don't know, I guess at some point after halfway through this, I realized I'm working myself out of position here. I got to figure out a career path because I can see where this is going. So
Yeah.
I remember sitting in a meeting one day with the owner and just specifically bringing it up, like, what are we going to do about excess power? And for one point in time, he had actually put it on the market, like as a company for sale sort of thing. And I didn't even know that he had done that at the time. And he said, I asked him, and he said, well, it's already available. If somebody comes with an offer right now, then it'll be gone. I can negotiate in for you to go with it or whatever, but why don't you just buy it? I'm like, you write my paycheck, you know. And at this time, I came from my brother running a cabinet business and my dad running a cabinet business. And I learned a lot of what not to do in business by watching them, because there were a lot of mistakes made along the way that made it very difficult for them. So when I went to work for a real corporate company, I decided I don't want to run my own business. It's too much of a headache. I want to use the skills that I have to be able to work somewhere and excel and do well. But when he said that, it was like, I can't do that. I don't have money, first of all, to buy anything. So I don't even know how that would work. And I left the office thinking, I'm probably not going to have a job in a few months. So I just kind of started thinking about it, and I started asking a few people, just like everybody else. I had mentors that I talked to. Me and you had Nick on last week. He and I, back then, we would talk probably 2 or 3 times a week, and we still do today, to kind of just bounce business ideas off of each other. And there were a few other people that I would talk to at the time, and somebody suggested, hey, why don't you look into getting an SBA loan and actually doing that? And I'm thinking, man, that's a crazy concept to think about. I don't really want to put myself in that position, but at some point, something changed in my mind where I'm like, okay, well, I can either continue doing this and maybe go with whoever buys the company and have a career, or maybe I'll come up with something else to do. Or I could start a little business of my own of some sort, or I could just go all in. So I did. I went to the bank, and they laughed me out of there. They're like, you don't have anything.
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting you to walk out with a check.
No, that's kind of what I thought. Listen, though, I put so much effort into the business plan. I mean, I literally went into the bank, and the banker, who happens to still be my banker today, he said, in all my years in the banking business, I've never seen a presentation put together this well. I almost want to give you the money on principle, but you do not qualify in any way whatsoever. I had to go back to the drawing board, and I spent a year back and forth trying to figure out how to make it work, and I eventually did figure it out. I saved up a bunch of money. I literally sold everything I had to my name to just come up with enough money to qualify for a down payment that the bank would allow me to make that move. So that was the end of 2010 when all that happened. In 2011, January 1st was our first official day in business as Excess Power. We were closed because it was New Year's, but right after I got back from the CES, we were officially in business that year in 2011. So at that point, we had, the product offering had changed tremendously. We had probably 25 plus battery SKUs at that time, new 16-volt models, lightweight versions, just tons of stuff. It was a lot to manage. I figured it out. I didn't really know what I was doing at first. I literally did not have a clear path. I had my business plan, which was very clearly written, but I didn't know that whenever I actually put it into practice, is my plan that I have written going to work. So within probably 6 months or so, I knew we were going to be fine. And we literally growing by tremendous amounts. Like, you know, I'm not talking about like 3 and 5%. I'm talking about like 30 and 40% growth year over year. And it's really not slowed down at all ever since. Like every year, it's like there's a new problem to figure out, because it's like you grow into these phases where you need somebody to do something else in the business, and you have to learn to kind of like let go of certain responsibilities and trust in the team. And I'm really fortunate to have a good team there right now.
That's crazy. You said it was 2011.
I know.
I can't. I don't know. Maybe my time is just warped, but it feels like
too.
I've been around forever. Like I feel like I
Yeah.
always had a D3100 somewhere in my garage at some point.
I always had a D5100 under my hood, and actually it was the same one, the same D5100 that I just wore slap out.
I'm gonna have to go look back at my photo bucket. You might have your dates wrong. I don't know. I absolutely had one before that. Yeah.
Tommy K's already calling me
Yeah,
out,
Tommy
so.
K. When did it really start, Tommy K?
When did they really? It was like,
look at the paperwork.
03,
Tommy
04.
K was there. That's crazy.
Somebody said they still got the
price sheet.
XX price sheet.
Yeah.
Will
Power Master price sheet.
Yeah.
Will Mantlo.
I don't know if y'all noticed, but old Jonathan Price or somebody.
Whoever who runs this YouTube, he's so big now.
Oh, Tommy's gonna dig up some pics. He said.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. 2011. I mean, it seems like
a pic of you like with the scissors cutting the ribbon and whatnot, because we need that in your timeline tomorrow. We're gonna timestamp the whole thing with pictures.
It was him cutting the Optima in half on his table saw.
On table saw.
It was totally uneventful. The transition was tough. I mean, I moved complete locations. Like before I took over, we had 2 locations. We had a 10,000 square foot office building that had a machine shop in the bottom, and we had a 20,000 square foot warehouse that was like 3 or 4 miles away. It made life impossible. You never knew what you had. You couldn't trust the systems we had in place to measure inventory and stuff like that. So once we all got in one building, and I just kind of handpicked people to come with me from the previous company, and it was totally uneventful. We didn't have a big party or anything like that. Like I don't know if you guys remember Nathan Way. He was the sales manager for a few years. Mm-hmm. He was one of the first guys that came on, and he bought me a thing Crown Black or something like that, and we took a sip of that, and that was it. Back to work.
Yeah, right. Get back to work.
Yeah. So no big party or anything like that.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
We needed incriminating office photos with everybody hammered off Crown or something.
No, nothing like straight to work trying to figure out what our new direction was going to be.
Well, you already headed in that direction, though, right? You were going to focus on car audio, and you still had a little racing niche.
Yeah. So I guess from there, one of the first things we did is we started our cable line and some accessories, and then a little while after that, maybe the second year there, we brought in the XP series so that we would have a higher capacity offering, because we were getting into a lot of even back then there was not a lot of Facebook back and forth, kind of like there is today, but there were people on forums and arguing back and forth, and we were fighting with a lot of people who would say that a higher capacity AGM battery meant that it was more powerful and better, which most people that know anything about batteries today know that that's not true. It really takes what you look for And your test that you did, Taylor, with comparing the AGM batteries outlined that very clearly. Like the higher capacity batteries had the lower performance for the burst type tests.
Right.
So that's really more well known now. So there's no arguments about that really. But back then, those were arguments that we were having. So we decided having a high capacity line that was not necessarily a instantaneous burp type product would have a big need, and we marketed it to obviously to the audio guys for supplemental power, but also to the marine guys. Marine guys use it. Anybody that needs a high capacity battery, pretty much that's the direction it goes.
Slower discharge, higher capacity, right?
That's right.
And can't put it under the hood.
You can. It's just so that's I guess one of the questions about our product line is the reason we don't want people putting the XP series under the hood is the housings are not reinforced. They're not really meant to be in high heat areas. They're meant more for remote locations. So power wise, you could throw an XP 950 in a diesel and crank it, no problem. It's a super powerful battery. It's just that it's not going to live a long life in that location.
Yeah.
So we don't recommend it for that reason. Plus, we want people buying the right product for the application. So when you're in business, that's kind of a hard thing to do because people want to just sometimes buy what you have that's the cheapest. So we get guys all the time that want to buy an XP 2000 and put it where Group 34 should go. Well, that's not what you're supposed to do. Don't do that.
But they spent $1,500 on a sub. I mean, they have to skimp on the amp and the electrical.
Yeah.
They got $150 to spend on 3,000 watts, and then they got an extra $75 for a battery.
Yeah, if that.
That's right.
Electrical is always the one that just doesn't get the love.
I know. One of my favorite memes on the internet is that what's that skinny actor's name? And he's holding up that giant cheerleader. You know, it's like your system, and he's like stock electrical.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so classic.
I forget who that was. Yeah, it gets the slightest piece of the pie. It doesn't get the glitz and the glory of a fancy new amp or a big surround sub or something. But it's it's just
what's the foundation?
Yeah.
The foundation.
So we're trying to change that with what we're coming out with for 2019. We're going to try to make it where the lithium battery is a more prominent part of the installation. It's something that people want to show off and put in their car. So we're really looking forward to that. We've probably put more than this whole year's worth of development into what we're going to be releasing. So we're pretty excited to have that. We're going to try to have some little previews for World Finals. So
putting everybody else on notice.
Yeah, we'll have our part 2 before World.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. We got to do that with the official product launch here on Everyday Audio with Scottie Johnson.
Somebody mentioned in the comments too, and I've been wanting to bring it up to other people, but that kinetic, that 12 volt, 16 volt thing, that was so cool for the time, That was just an extra cell in there wired so you could, honestly, go ahead.
All it was a 16 volt battery with an extra post where the 6th cell was. So it was, in theory, a good design, but without a way to manage the current between those cells, it's a warranty nightmare. Some people actually still make a battery like that, but we never added it to our lineup. And I actually wrote an article about it. We pass it out to tons of our customers who have asked for that type of product. I think I titled it The Futility of the 3-Post Battery or something like that.
I never got it.
When you put it in a vehicle and you're pulling current from 8 cells in the same manner. So if you have the 12 volt part hooked up to a 12 volt amplifier, for example, and a 16 volt amplifier hooked up to the 16 volt part, well, those 6 cells are pulling all of the current out for both products, both the 12 volt side and the 16 volt side. But so what happens is those 6 cells get discharged much deeper than the last two cells in the battery. So when you go to recharge that battery, the two cells, if you're charging across the 16-volt post, which is the only way that you could do it, what happens is those two end cells get overcharged. So we actually bought a few of them, and this is something that we do. Probably a lot of companies do competitive analysis, but we do a lot of competitive analysis, and we've done it since the very beginning. So when people started asking us for a product like that, the first thing we did is try to check out its viability. We understand the market for it. We know the reason why somebody would want it, but is the product going to work, and is it going to last for the consumer who buys it? And there's very few people who buy a 3-post battery that actually get any sort of life expectancy out of it at all. So one of the first things we did is bought one and installed it under the hood of a vehicle with 16-volt charging system, and ran it just like it was designed to be ran. And in the very first day we drove it around powering the system with it, it started to bulge out on the side. It started to get extremely hot and started to defect from the very beginning. So we didn't have to do much testing.
Have you seen, since you sell both, one of the only ones that sell both, have you seen a decline in high voltage sales since you started offering alternatives?
Yeah, so since we released caps, we sold much less large banks of 16-volt batteries, because most of the guys that are using 16-volt amplifiers and using the really big power amplifiers would need 60 or 80 plus batteries. I mean, the last van that I competed with, I had 120 of those 16-volt batteries in there. Probably second largest bank ever made to Scott Owens' Pioneer Bank. It's just people, once they realize there are alternatives out there. So a lot of guys switched from big, huge 16-volt banks to either 16-volt lithium or just straight caps. So we don't, selling 16-volt batteries to the car audio market for SPL competition never was really a viable market anyway. It's not a whole lot of those guys out there, but yeah, we haven't been selling as many to people that build 16-volt competition setups.
I don't know if you saw the last show, but Skip accused me of ruining the caps for everyone. So you're welcome.
He immediately jumped the price up.
and tripled Scottie's sales when he dropped them.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's something to be
give and take here.
Yeah,
a little give and take.
He's on the ticket.
Yeah.
You, I don't know if you still have it, but that Group 51 cap bank that that was probably within the first 5 or 10 off the production line.
No kidding. Sweet.
You got one. The serial number probably reveals how early on it was in the production process, but you got one.
I'll have to check that because it's going in the trunk of my new super secret build.
I didn't know you had one of those. I got one in my Honda Civic, the 630 farad. So I'm cooler.
I love caps. I love caps, and I love the fact that there's a finished solution for them, like y'all are doing, because they scare the crap out of me, man.
We just talked about that.
I can't tell you how many times an Allen wrench has been dropped, and it's just there's no good way to mount them any friggin' where, they're all just a nightmare at all times. So.
Wait till you see what we got coming. We're putting our SEMA new products list together right now, and there's a few new cap products. One of the things that I know everybody's going to be super stoked about, we actually at our show we put some of them out, but we have an end-to-end connector now so that you can connect.
I've been looking for those.
And it uses this much space. I mean, it uses just a tiny amount of space.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know that sheet that has all your batteries and then like a wattage rating for them all? Yep. Do you remember when y'all came out with that?
Probably.
It was still forum days, I know. So.
Yeah, it's probably 08. It was way back.
Do you have any way to track traffic on your site, like for that one page? Because that has got to be the most visited page ever.
Probably. I don't know that it's visited as much as it used to be. It's changed over the years. It's totally changed. It's grown because we've added new items. At first, there were only like probably 6 or 7 models on there, but now it's getting to where we can't even hardly fit them on one page.
That yeah, that was an incredible resource at the time, because nobody really had any kind of idea how much power can I run with this, and this, and this. And
Yeah.
you could just go there. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, on the excess power page, they have a list of all their batteries and
Yeah.
a wattage rating, like a straight up wattage rating that you can convert to your amplifier as a starting battery or as a backup battery. And you go there, you plug it in. I need 10K, so guess what? I need three D3100s or whatever your needs are.
I don't care what that says. D3100 is unlimited. It's just
Unlimited. No,
I'll put
that's
everything on.
7500.
I'll just stack as many terminals as I can on there. No bus bar.
We don't share it enough, but there's a lot of really good resources on there. In the support section, there's that wattage chart. There's amperage charts for the cables, which would come in handy for the people that are, whatever you tagged me in earlier about the big 3 kits or whatever. So
I was just putting us out there.
Yeah.
I was hoping to get some of the guys in here to argue about wire.
Right. But there's a bunch of good resources on there. State of charge charts are in there. We're going to be adding, obviously, right now we don't have a whole lot to put in there for the lithium batteries that we currently offer, but the new line there'll be a whole lot of super intricate technical detail, which is what a lot of people want. And now that literally almost everybody is just a lot of the DIY guys are just buying whatever they can find off of the internet and putting their own things together. This will be a good comparison for that.
How do you feel about that? Like the DIY guy that's, like you said, buying just a lot of them on eBay,
you heard my story. I was broke. I couldn't afford to buy anything, so I'm literally made my own battery where my path started. So I can't knock these guys that are trying to figure it out. As what I did by literally trying to cut a battery in half on a table saw is probably just as dangerous as what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
I was super careful about it, and I learned what you can and can't get by with. But the one thing is the difference in chemistry. I mean, there's one thing about taking just a lithium cell, for example, and cutting it in half, or poking it, or dropping it in water or fire. That's something totally different than the chemical reaction that happens to a lithium battery. So there is still a very serious need for being careful whenever. So these DIY guys probably they're at much higher risk of hurting themselves than the stupid things I was doing with AGM batteries back in the day. But as long as they're careful with it, they're learning, they're trying to figure stuff out. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not affecting our sales through our dealers. It's really only affecting the sales through like the SPL stuff. And the SPL stuff, for me, it's my background. I don't think our presence is ever going to go away there because we have so many loyal competitors. Now, don't get me wrong, 2 years ago, Team Excess Power was 2 or 3 times the size it is right now because we were probably the only option. One of the only options. Now there are other AGM options, and there's a lot of people trying to buy their way into the market by giving away super cheap or free product. So our team has kind of stepped down some, but the team that we do still have is the best team we could ask for because those are your loyal guys. They're not going to waver when somebody says, I'll replace every battery in your vehicle for free. Just,
How you going to compete? You can't compete with that.
Yeah, I mean, given the opportunity, if somebody, and this has happened, we've had some of our loyal Team Excess Power guys say, hey, so-and-so said they would give me stuff for free. What can you do for me? And I'm like, you've been a competitor of ours for 5 years. It's been a good run. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
We'd love to still have you on the team, but I can't, if I don't have to buy the market. We already have incredible market share. So that would be a poor business move for me to just do that. So the way we're going to attack it is by innovating and staying a step ahead in every facet of our business. So if we just stay a step ahead of what everybody else is doing, then we will maintain a decent SPL team. And I'm not really worried about that going away.
You guys still do a ton of sponsoring and stuff too, right? Show sponsors and trophy sponsors and hosting. And
yeah, we try to. It comes from my background in being a competitor. give back as much as I can to like all the events and stuff like that. So we do a fair amount. We try to budget a decent amount every year to be able to go to events and sponsor them and do trophies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to a show, there's going to be a banner somewhere that says Excess Power somewhere, somewhere on it.
You have the
Yeah.
coolest team shirts too. Those button ups, those light blue ones. I
Oh
love
yeah,
those. Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
for sure.
I
For
Yeah,
love
we
sure.
those.
we
Huh.
didn't do one for 2018, but we got a whole bunch of new apparel stuff for 2019. So
I do like
that'll be
the new lithium colors. There was like the bright yellowish green type thing with black. That looks cool.
yeah.
I like
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Back this
Is that
this.
like the
Go ahead.
throwback battery he's got?
Yeah, I do. No, what's the M? No, not the MX. What was the one that the old school looking ones?
Oh, the A series, A34 and
Yeah,
V34.
yeah, those are cool.
Yeah, we did those. I think year before last, and they've done really well too. Guys like that. So I guess one of the other things that kind of ties into that whole story that I mentioned earlier about TurboStart going out of business and all that. For the audio guys, we don't really talk about this on the racing side too much, but I don't mind sharing a story like this with the audio guys. But they came back in business for a period, probably for 5 years or so. They came back after we had already developed our 16-volt product, and they turned into a competitor again. Or actually, for the first time, they were a competitor to Excess Power. And then the company bought them out, went out of business again, like a few years later, and they went out of business completely and just kind of dropped off the map for about a year. Well, when they announced initially that they were going out of business, the first thing I did was reach out to whoever I could try to get a hold of at that company. What are you going to do with it? Are you just going to throw it away, or is the company for sale? What are you going to do? And the nobody there, and I had been to their facility in Pennsylvania multiple times before, working out various deals, and never actually were able to come to a business agreement type deal with those guys. But nobody ever returned my call. So for a year, I just assumed that ProtoStart brand was just going to be out of business and gone forever. But about a year later, the guy that ran that business randomly called me up one day and he was like, "Hey, I hate to see the brand die. Why don't you take it over?" So I actually got the opportunity.
Just
3
buying
years.
up companies left and right, left and right.
Like Monopoly, bro. Just putting houses out there.
Bruh.
Yeah, so
Let me get
like I
boardwalk.
said, in the overall scheme, like in the racing side, we don't really announce that very much. The two companies are up and running now. TurboStart as a racing battery company, Excess Power as both. We do both racing and audio and commercial and all those other things. But that was kind of a cool thing that kind of what got me started into the battery development was out of necessity of not being able to get that company's product. And then the fact that they went out of business started this opportunity at this other company for me to come and be a battery engineer. And then for it to circle around several years later for me to have an opportunity to buy that company out, knowing it was a pretty good feeling of success for that to happen.
Man, that's crazy. That is wild how that came around full circle.
Speak.
And that company has been
That's
doing
good, clean living right there.
Yeah, and that what reminded me of that is that antique series that you're talking about. That if you guys check out the TurboStart website, there's a whole line of like replica style batteries that we're in production on right now. So over the last year or so, we've been putting a lot of energy into other things other than what people know our current offering to be today, and those collector car batteries are one of those things, and just the overall lineup. But we will have a new line of racing lithium batteries, and just there's so much that we've been working on. It's kind of all gonna explode at once. So probably the soonest thing that will come around are our new billet terminals. If you guys follow my social media, you probably saw some little 3D printing that we were doing. But we've got a whole line of billet accessories that'll be hopefully available for the holiday season.
That's awesome.
Speaking of racing, just real quick story. I have a turbo Honda Civic, and it's got bigger injectors, bigger fuel pump, and all that. And I had like just a standard Group 51 battery under there, and it was tuned and everything, whatever. So then I put in the new cap bank, the 51R 630 or whatever, under the hood. Just that alone Instantly ran rich. Needed a retune. The
Nuh-uh.
fuel. Swear to God, fuel pumps pumping out just hose wire. It's just. So I'm sending you the bill for a new retune, Scotty.
real.
So appreciate
You
that.
know that there actually has turned into a little bit of a market for those in race. You know, a guy that's going to daily drive is not going to use a cap bank.
Right, right.
You're more informed than almost every race guy would be, so you're going to know it's not going to charge. And when you are ready to drive that, you're going to have to go out and charge that cap bank up. But race guys, they don't want to deal with all that.
Yeah. Make one pass. Make one. It'll hold for one pass, maybe two. I don't know. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, lithium's a better option there though, because there's lithium is actually still lighter weight and way more reserve, and still with the voltage. We love caps because they hold. You know, they're so fast.
Yeah, yeah. So we're you know, we will have the lithium racing options and a bunch of stuff coming in power sports. But it's funny you mentioned your race car. Steve Cook actually uses that same exact setup in his GTR. Since we were talking about Steve earlier, but
Steve Cook got a GTR.
I hate him.
God,
I'm telling you,
douche.
Since he daily drives,
Nick talked about it on the last cast. I hate this guy.
Yeah. Since he daily drives his, he has a 545 that he threw in there just to hold the capacity up, so the caps all the time. So it's a pretty cool setup.
I'm gonna find him at finals. I'm gonna kick him right in his nut.
Dick punch Steve Cook.
Champion
And
of
then I'm
everything.
gonna have him tune my car.
There you go.
By his ear, nothing else, just his ear.
Don't not the ears, not the ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you thought I was going to try to challenge you to a drag race with Cadillac.
No, we
I
don't have
it's
that.
fast,
Yeah,
man.
it's
That
lightweight.
Civic is a beast.
You got all kind of added body panels and stuff. Weight.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's got 20s on it. It's
Yeah.
not bad.
Yeah. It's pretty. It looks pretty parked.
Terrible. Have you ever run that thing in the quarter? I
Quarter?
know you said you run the 8.
No.
The
half.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran it in a half-mile race. Actually, it's not even been in my possession since December. It's just like the story I told from the beginning. I never learned my lesson of just having something and leaving it alone. I can't stop. It's an addiction.
None of us.
Why?
can.
Don't change it. Just accept it and move forward. Just
I mean,
let it fully manifest and become your life.
You know, that Malibu I had, I didn't do anything to it other than just put that excess power battery in it.
And you regret it. You regret it every day.
Nothing ever bad happened to me.
Right. That's the one thing.
And I drove it every single day for 10 years. So I talked to the guys, Boost Addicts, who has the Cadillac. They're the ones that do the engine work in Nashville. And I talked to those guys this morning. They actually got it fired up last week under its own power, and it's supposed to go on the dyno. Either they were going to get to it today or they're going to get to it tomorrow. So I'm like this close of having it back, but it's got twin 66 millimeter precision turbos on it now. So
Stop it.
the combination on paper should be good at the crank for about 2,000 horsepower. So
No, stop it.
I don't
Stop
know
it.
what to put down, but I should know within a week or so.
Jeez. Is it an automatic or did you?
I mean,
It is.
what
Is it the factory automatic or you upgraded that?
No, that's one of the reasons why I haven't. So you asked if I've raced it yet. I did run it in a half mile, and it was at that time it was making close to 1,000 horsepower. Probably on the dyno that they have, it's a Mustang dyno. I think it did 850 or something like that, and it should have, by the weight and by the numbers, I should have been able to run into the 160s or close to it, but I ran like 152 or something like that, and I didn't really understand why until I got back from that particular race, and I realized that the transmission wasn't holding up. The torque converter was slipping the whole time. So I sent it off to Texas and had the whole internals swapped for billet parts, so it should be good for 1,700-ish to the wheels now. So, but it's still the factory
6L80 or something. Is that what it is?
6L9, I think, or something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
you gonna try to get Ballinger to line up with you? I think he runs those half miles too, doesn't he?
He brought it to the last half mile race that we sponsored. We didn't actually. I raced my Mercedes in thing just for shits and giggles, just
Sure.
to see what it would do.
Yeah, me too. That's
Yeah.
what I do. I bring my Mercedes
Yeah,
out
yeah.
for shits and
Just
giggles.
took it out.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know what that thing will do. It's super light though. It's a nice looking car. I don't know.
What is it? It's a McLaren.
Uh-huh.
what it is?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Douche.
I'm
He's
sorry.
got me blocked on Facebook, so I'm not talking about him right now.
But he doesn't have you blocked on YouTube, so go ahead, let him have it, big boy.
I don't have nothing. I don't know why he blocked me, honestly. I don't.
Everybody.
Yeah, he does. I think I got I got caught one of the tornado blocks. He was just going
Yeah.
through blocking people, and he's like, "What did I do?"
Who's this guy?
Yeah,
I'm blocking him.
fuck him. He's in the same city.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll race him. I'll race anybody.
Yeah.
I guess so. With a 2,000 horsepower CT SV, I want it.
What they got those up there by you, or you come down to Texas and do a lot of those half?
Yeah, the ones we do are in Georgia usually, but they do them in Florida. They have them in Texas. There's one in North Carolina. So yeah, there's a few around here where we don't have to go too far.
You drag it with the Kodiak?
Yeah.
And you said the Kodiak's coming out
Riding
too.
in style, cuz.
It'll be. I'm hoping. So we've got. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but there's an event called LS Fest that's coming up in Bowling Green next weekend.
Yeah.
Holly puts it on. It's a huge event. So we're gonna have Cadillac, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed we have the Kodiak for that. But it won't. I don't think the stereo system will be done. There's a few things that need to be finished, but we're doing a blow through in the Kodiak. So
That's sick.
yeah, it'll
That is
have
sick.
415s and I don't know.
Sundown? Or
W3s,
Terminator? I mean, you gotta
W3s.
Pick between your buddies.
No, do
Yeah, that was
W3s.
tough, man. It was really tough. I had a hard time with that because not only do we have a lot of really good marketing partners, like all these companies like Sundown, Terminator, DD, SoundCube. I mean, like all these people are like really great marketing partners of ours. So that's one reason why I held off so long doing a deal, because it's like I don't want to make somebody mad like DC.
No, go back to your days and just do one of each.
10 and a 12.
That's right. A 10 and
I
a
don't have enough air left to do that. I'll completely be gray and bald by that time.
you can pull it off.
But yeah, I mean, so we're doing Incriminator Wardens in there, and we're going to do 30.1s and plenty of excess power product on display. So I won't ruin the rest of it. It's going to be pretty nice. I got some
That thing is
sneak peek.
already sick. Dude. That thing is so sweet.
You and John Rab, I can't look at y'all project cars.
I know, for real.
Makes me just
It's
mad.
disgusting.
It's mad at life.
Disgusting.
I love some of the stuff he puts together.
Yeah.
Those things.
Oh, it's stupid.
Yeah.
I can't look at it. I'm sorry.
No.
I just reported to Facebook
Me
immediately.
too. I click report and I keep scrolling. 'Cause
Yeah, like
I don't want to. I don't need to see
this
that.
is spam. This
I don't need
is
to see that. What's the point?
fake news, Zuckerberg. Get him.
That's funny.
No, that's sick though. When's that debut? And that's gonna be, hopefully.
We were going to try to have it ready for our show. That was in July, but that didn't work out. So we kind of pushed it for the Sundown show, and then that didn't work out. So now its actual official debut will not be until finals, World Finals.
Ooh.
So we'll have it available before then. We'll probably share pictures of it and all that stuff. But the first time people actually get to get demos from it and see it and hear it, it'll be at finals. And
I'm gonna drag Skip to finals this year.
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
I've already decided that he is going, whether he knows it or wants.
Dude, we're gonna do a live show from there.
Oh yeah, every
Just walk
day
around. We're gonna walk
like
around. You on the
That's right.
podcast?
We're gonna set up a little booth. We're gonna have live stream.
Come sit down and chat.
All that.
I figured you'd put it right here on your head.
I'm absolutely going to do that.
He doesn't do
Thank
that
you.
enough. He comes up with ideas and he just that's it. He does them once or twice and then he loses it.
I haven't been able
Zero
to get to shows. What do you want me to
commitment. I
No,
can't
it's
get
not
the
true.
shows. Who's building?
There's
the-
nobody around here loud enough for me to need to post it out.
Oh, snap.
Zing! I'll step y'all's game up. All right, Scottie, we're gonna wrap this thing up, man. Is there anything else you want to get out there to the public? Tease
No.
for episode 2 or any tidbits?
Yeah.
Nick Wright knows what's up, and we know something's big coming.
Something big is coming.
There's so many things. I'm not gonna give anything away just yet, but we'll have a whole lot of new stuff.
Well, that's good. We definitely got to have you back on to do some of these reveals. We will definitely see you.
I'm gonna start asking everybody. I'm sorry to cut you off, Taylor. Do you know about the car Illuminati sheet?
No, no, he doesn't. Do you know why? Because the Illuminati does not talk about the Illuminati.
It's a sheet. It's a.
Stop it. Just quit.
Why did you say
Just quit.
that? I'm gonna ask you off the air. I'm gonna ask every guest.
Scottie, what are you talking about? Scottie wrote that
Yeah,
shit,
yeah.
son.
Yeah, it's some kind of Euro
He
stuff.
invented the Astro Box before the Astro Box was even a thing.
I need all of the company owners to build a SPL vehicle and just a death match at one finals.
Oh my God, that would be so awesome. Remember how they used to do? But it was
Yeah.
just kicker and five gate back then.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was like manufacturer awards.
Yeah.
Now everybody's like, oh, buddy, hey,
Yeah.
buddy, hey.
No,
buddy.
I do. Speaking of that,
I hate each other in here.
I do like you didn't go back and forth with, but another battery competitor, y'all had a exchange, and that was my head blew up
Exchange.
on Facebook. I love that though. I love that. Like y'all wasn't arguing, but y'all were throwing back points. Man,
Yeah.
that was scary.
I think that stuff does a lot to educate
Yes.
the consumer.
Yes.
It's not fun to go through for anybody that's going through that, but it's I think it's a good thing. Nobody got
The last,
mad.
I'm not to throw you under the bus, but I'm gonna. The last two lithium fires were reported. One Limitless, one JY. Both claim responsibility on the red XS charger.
Yeah. I don't. What was the second one? Was the second one XS power charger or just an AGM charger in general?
They said it was the red one.
I don't know.
Regardless,
The red XS power one, yeah.
It's definitely not the.
Is that because it's dual mode, like 14 and 16, or does it just run away? Is that a thing? Like, why would?
Yeah. So lithium. One of the things you can't do with lithium is just leave it on charge. You can't. This is probably not the situation for either of those two. The first one that I'm really not very familiar with, but the second one, I'm pretty sure what happened is they charged it too high and the cells vented, and then that caused a problem down the road that eventually ended up with having what happened. But one thing, just from going all the way back to our experience, all the way back to 2007, if you put a lithium battery on an AGM type charger that goes into float mode, once a lithium battery gets full, it's not meant to be continuously charged anymore. It's just like a cell phone or any other lithium device. When you plug an item like that in charge, the charger turns off after it's full. And all of our lithium chargers, or any lithium charger on the market, once it reaches fully charged set point, it doesn't have a second stage that it goes into. It's just supposed to turn off. So if you put an AGM style battery charger on a lithium battery and you walk away from it and leave it, it's going to be a bad day. And you might get lucky and it might not damage it that time, but the next time you go back to it, it may damage it the next time.
Regardless of current, like even like a teeny tiny little trickle charger.
Yeah, so like our charger, and AGM chargers vary, but our charger will go into float mode once the current is less than 700 milliamps. So you know how the 3-stage charge profile works, right? You charge bulk, and then you charge constant current, constant voltage, and then it goes into float after that. Well, ours switches at 700 milliamps, and then it just varies from there. So if the battery only needs 200 milliamps to maintain float voltage, 13.5 volts or whatever, then that's all the charger will provide. But at some point, a lithium battery will actually it starts to accumulate in temperature. It'll get hotter and hotter, and as it gets hotter, the resistance goes up. And the reaction the charger has at that time is it's not smart enough to know what the temperature is. Like our PSC units, they have a temp sense built in. So theoretically, you could use our PSC series chargers on a lithium battery and use the temp sensor, and if it started to get hot, it would shut its current off. I still don't recommend that because the temp is not a foolproof catch. But so what happens is the lithium battery, as it starts to warm up, the resistance will get higher. And the charger will start to go back up in current. It'll start to produce more current because it thinks that's what the battery needs, the resistance of the battery. So the resistance of a AGM battery is its lowest when it's fully charged, and it's its highest when it's fully discharged. So that's all the charger really knows. So if you use any AGM style battery on a lithium,
You have that. You have that backwards. Lowest resistance when it's.
no, it sounds backwards, but it's if you measure the internal resistance of the battery, it's the highest when it's at a certain temperature and when it's fully charged. I'm sorry, it's the lowest when it's fully charged. So when it's dead, the resistance is kind of high. So that's kind of what you see in a lithium
Oh, so
battery.
it pulls more. It pulls more load because of resistance.
Right.
Oh wait.
Well,
Shut up,
Right.
shut up,
myself.
Fade.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop
Shut up.
talking.
yeah. So
confusing
anyway, so that will happen.
The man cut open batteries. He knows. He had to cut open an Optima on a
We should
table
have stopped when
saw.
I said let's wrap this shit up, right?
He know. You
No,
just
no.
embarrassed yourself.
No, it's all good. So yeah, but it'll. If you are using an AGM charger on a lithium battery, the only thing you have to do really is just cut it off when it's full. So if you're charging a lithium battery and it gets to 14 volts, it doesn't need a float voltage or a float current. It's as full as it's going to get. You're not going to put a lower amount of current and put more. You know, you can charge a 110 amp hour AGM battery to 115 amp hours if it's a surface charge. That doesn't really exist with lithium batteries, so it's a wasted step and it's a wasted amount of time, and you could damage your battery. So, as far as I know, that's what happened with both of those guys. They were using the wrong charger.
AGM charger.
Sorcery.
Yeah.
Obviously wrong.
Sorcery.
Yeah, we programmed a little secret code, and somebody hooks our AGM up to somebody else's lithium battery.
I mean, well, that's obviously what I was getting at.
It comes up a little display. Fuck you, we're at XS. Oh, I would want that now.
Oh my God, you have to put that on all the new boards.
It just
somewhere in a
you
little
put some
Easter
kind
egg.
of you put some kind of circuitry in there that it knows. I will only charge. Yeah, happy
You need
fire.
like a handshake with the charger and the battery.
Oh, so hilarious.
All
Yeah,
right.
man, this was fun.
This
Part
was-
two is gonna be scary.
Oh, part 2 is gonna be
Part 2 is
scary.
gonna be
We
scary.
laid the groundwork like our electrical
Yeah.
with episode 1,
Nah,
and we're
Yeah.
gonna hit them with the voltage
Yeah,
episode 2.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good deal. All right,
Good.
you guys.
Fun times.
Thanks for tuning in.
appreciate
Skip
it.
01.
Yeah,
Taylor Fade.
Scottie Johnson.